Thank you all.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Hirono.
Thank you very much. As we wrestle with what kind of regulation or parameters we should put on the training and AI, it just seems to make sense that the creators of the content should get some kind of compensation for the use of their material in training the AI platforms. So this is for Mr. Leggett. Don't we already have, do you not already have a lot of expertise, experience in figuring out what would be an appropriate way to license for copyrighted material and other, the use of this kind of content? And how would that be applied in the case of AI?
Senator, thank you for the question. Over the last 3 decades, local television broadcasters have literally done thousands of deals with cable and satellite systems across the country for the distribution of their programming. The notion that the tech industry is saying that it is too complicated to license from such a diverse array of content owners just doesn't stand up. We negotiate with some of the largest cable systems in the country. Mm-hmm. We negotiate with small mom and pop cable systems. And the result of that is that instead of just doing national deals with our networks, our broadcast networks, or news organizations in New York and LA, every local community in the country is served by a locally focused broadcast station, and that station's programming is carried on the local cable and satellite system. So we have a lot of experience here. Similarly, on the radio side, there are licensing organizations. Mr. Lynch referred to this in his testimony that allow for collective licensing of songwriter rights, performing rights. All of this, our industry has been in the center of both as a licensor and licensee and has been tremendously beneficial.
Do we need to enact legislation for this kind of licensing procedures to be put together and implemented?
I think it is premature. Some of the discussion around legislation thus far in the hearing has been about reaffirming the application of current law. If we have clarity that current law applies to generative AI, let's let the marketplace work. And we have every reason to believe the marketplace will work, but I think it is incumbent on this subcommittee to pay careful attention to these court decisions and also the way that the tech industry is treating the current law in the interim, because as we've said, if it's an arm race of who can spend the most on litigation, we know that the tech industry beats out everyone else.
This is also for Ms. Coffey. So do you think that for both of you, do you think that current law, the application of current law should sort of be left and determined by what cases, lawsuits that have been filed? How do we clarify that current law applies in the AI situation?
So we submitted a lot of recommendations for the record that have to do with transparency, that have to do with accountability, supporting legislation that's already pending, that have to do with competition, going to previous references to the search and tying to AI. When it comes to licensing, there is already a healthy ecosystem, as my colleagues have said, and there's also already a market when it comes to newspapers because we have archives that have existed over hundreds of years that we've spent a lot of money to digitize so that you can find the history. As far as the current existing market and the current law, I would encourage these licensing agreements and arrangements between AI developers and news publishers so that we can avoid protracted litigation that's not good for either industries.
But for that to happen, do you agree that we don't need to enact legislation? We should wait to see how things turn out a little bit longer before we take steps that may end up with some unintended consequences?
There are things that Congress can do at this time around copyright law to ensure responsibility. But as far as what's pending in the courts, at this time, we do believe we have the law behind us and we have the protection in the current law.
These technologies should be licensing our content. If they are not, Congress should act. But under current law, they should be doing it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.